Walking through darkness is really about initiation. It's not about the dark part of our soul. It's about how life asks us to shed parts of our ego so that it makes room for our spirit to be able to grow bigger. And so that we evolve out of the place where we are, where we're seeing everything through the collective eyes. And so we shed those parts of ourselves so that we can find the parts inside of ourselves that are creative, are passionate about life. But first, we have to go through a big initiation, and the world is going through a really big initiation right now.
Insight and awareness, spiritual explorer. Soul intuitive, emotional and spiritual mentor and award-winning author, Lorraine Nylon.
Welcome, explorers, and thank you for being part of the adventure. If you'd like to know more about exploring life, please like and subscribe. It all helps our channel to build. But today we have a special guest. We have Sandra Ingerman, and she's a professional mental health counsellor and a world-renowned shaman. She's recognised for bridging ancient, cross-cultural healing methods with our modern world. She has taught for 40 years, including workshops worldwide on shamanic journeying, healing, and reversing environmental pollution using spiritual methods. And she's the author of 13 books, and her last adventure is that she has become a co-author of Walking Through Darkness, a nature-based path to navigating suffering and loss. So thank you for being aboard, Sandra. I'm really interested in talking to you about the dark side of the soul, which I know that's what your Walking Through Darkness book's about.
I'm delighted to be here. Walking through darkness is really about initiation. It's not about the dark part of our soul. It's about how life asks us to shed parts of our ego so that it makes room for our spirit to be able to grow bigger. And so that we evolve out of the place where we are, where we're seeing everything through the collective eyes. And so we shed those parts of ourselves so that we can find the parts inside of ourselves that are creative, are passionate about life. But first, we have to go through a big initiation, and the world is going through a really big initiation right now. And so, walking through darkness is just a roadmap of what do you do when the universe brings you all of this so that your ego is just, what do I do? And your mind is, what do I do? I don't know how to get through this. I don't know how to get through this. What do I do? So I shared my roadmap of what I've learned in 71 years because we used to have grandmothers and grandfathers and who used to rock us and tell us how to get through dark times. We don't have
Yeah.
that now.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. I love that you say initiation because you hear a lot about, the dark side of the soul, and people get confused by that.
Mm.
And so I love how you phrase that. So when we're talking about initiation, what kind of, walking through darkness, what kind of things are you talking about?
Here we are, on a planet, and everything that's important to us is in the material realm. And so life brings us to places where it's time for our spirit to have a voice. And so we might lose a child, we might be in an accident, we might have a health crisis that comes in, we might have lost a job and don't have any money to live. So, what happens in initiation, back in the old days in shamanic cultures, the community was so important in order to survive.
Mm.
So everybody had to be strong and everybody had to contribute. And so there were different initiations that people were put through during times of their life. A very popular initiation that people around the world really like is fire walking.
Mm.
And your ego cannot get you through walking through fire, it doesn't know how. Your mind doesn't know how either, but your spirit does. Your spirit is a reflection of source, the creative forces of the universe, God, the goddess, whatever you believe in. And so, in the depths of an initiation, nobody comes in to help you. If you do shamanic journeying and work with helping spirits, you're helping spirits stand on the sidelines and wave and go, you can do it. But so we're all being faced with this kind of initiation. And in a shamanic culture, to get through an initiation like that meant you're now ready. You have tools, you have skills, you have the spiritual strength to be a member of the community that can help each other survive and thrive. And so in the collective, we have to say that we've lost a little bit of our respect for life because of everything that's happened to us. We're not really taking care of nature and taking care of the earth or being grateful. And so people are being put through all over the world these trials of when are you going to wake up
Mm.
and be a conscious human and be in service and add and stop blaming and stop projecting? How do we go beyond ego and go to the deepest part of ourselves, which is a reflection of the creative forces of the universe, who actually knows how to make the changes? And so it doesn't feel good to be in this kind of initiation. You feel you
Yeah.
feel like you're in the dark. Where do you go? What's your
Yeah.
next step? I think I'll just go to bed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Put the telly on. Don't worry
Mhm.
about it.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it is when people are I always explain to people, your awareness is lifted enough for you to see that you're not happy with how you're living.
right.
Now you've got to keep expanding that awareness to understand why, so then you can make the decisions and, weigh up your choices to how you
Mhm.
move forward. But if you can't recognize that, then you become trapped, or you become stuck on a circuit, or a loop, and away you go. So it's
Right.
like, for anyone that is actually struggling, it's like, if you get your head around that as a starting point, then all of a sudden you start at least at least exploring. And
Mhm.
yeah. And I always look at ego as it's what covers our soul. See,
Mhm.
I could have had that conversation that you just had then, but I would have used the word indifference.
Mm.
We've become indifferent to nature. We've become indifferent to what we're part of. And indifference can last for a very long time. There's no end point. So unless you wake up and see the reality of something and respect it,
Mhm.
respect the truth. So that's how I see where we're at. We're sort of stuck in this indifference loop, this selfish, indifferent loop. And if we want to stay there, we implode. So yeah, because
Yes.
indifference eventually doesn't peter out; it implodes, it destroys. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm really lucky in that back in 1980, I got introduced to the practice of shamanism. And shamanism is the oldest practice that exists, spiritual practice that exists on the planet. And so you have to wonder this practice is over 100,000 years old, and it's still being practiced today. And more people are becoming interested in it all over the world. And so shamanism has been around so long because it works. It creates results. It creates healing. The practices create healing. Obviously, they've changed. The practices have changed over 100,000 years. But with shamanism, we work with what are called divine and helping spirits. And we can do ceremonies where we could meet them and talk to them and say, "This is what's going on for me. Can you give me some help?" And we have ceremonies that we can do, like putting your greatest fear into a fire, or burying it in the earth, or drawing a mandala down on the beach at the ocean and letting the waves take it away. And so through shamanism, when the ego goes, I think I'm going to sit down in the dark. I'm just going to sit down in the dark, which my spirit's second journey I ever had in 1980 said, whatever happens in your life, never sit down in the dark. And so I've been trying to teach people how to not sit down in the dark. And for me, it's all about performing ceremonies, letting go of the hurts, the traumas. Um, I wrote a book, Soul Retrieval, Mending the Fragment Itself. It was my very first book, and it was to help trauma survivors. And we've helped hundreds of thousands of trauma survivors with the work of soul retrieval. And once you do wake up your soul and you have your soul and your spirit alive, all of a sudden your passion, your love for life, you wake up and you go, wow, where have I been? What I've been doing? My life doesn't feel that good to me. It doesn't feel good to me what people are saying to me. And so um, once we get to that place, and we in shamanism we call it dismemberment, which is not a term that people like, but people actually love dismemberment journeys. They're very healing. It's where the spirits take illness and pain from you and rebuild you into your perfect self. And so part of the dismemberment process is remembering the truth of who we are, that we're part of the Creator, and that the Creator actually created us out of an enormous amount of unconditional love. I feel really grateful in that I have helping spirits I can talk to. I can talk to the creative forces of the universe, and I can do ceremonies, perform ceremonies to create a really strong link between my human world and the world of spirit, to ask for help and to ask for guidance. And nature is a really big part of that. Nature is always trying to help us.
Yeah, yeah, and we are so disrespectful of it, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
we are. I don't like to get into blame, but we have to wake up. We have to wake up to the fact that where we're getting our life from. And so my true love, and I have this belief, and I've been talking about this belief for probably 10 years. If every single person on this earth got up every single morning and gave thanks to the sun for the life that it gives, gave thanks to the earth for the bounty that it gives us, gives thanks to air for our life. Air was the very first being that welcomed us into this world when we took our first breath. And it's the very last being that says goodbye to us when we leave here. And we are water, we're made up of water. And so we put pollutants into the earth that gives us life. We put pollutants into the water that gives us life. We put pollutants into the air that gives us life. So I know that everybody listening, we all wonder about the intelligence of human beings when you
It's
poison
true.
the things that give you life. And the elements are billions of years old. The Earth is 4.6 billion years old. She doesn't even know we're here. But we can lie down on the Earth and connect our heartbeat with a 4.6 billion year old being. And for those of us who have had a lot of trauma, to be able to lay on the earth and feel her love and feel her heartbeat connecting with our heartbeat, and the wind coming and kissing our cheek, and the sun removing our pain, and the water giving us so much unconditional love. Our lives change, and we won't be dealing with climate change if we do that, except for what's natural, not human made. The earth is evolving like we are.
And so, what do you think humanity needs to acknowledge and understand for us to evolve?
Well, I think we have to understand that we're not the most important things on the planet, number one, and that everything is connected. So, trees will actually send nurturance to another tree that's struggling. Um, we know that plants send medicine to trees who are struggling, and plants will share medicine with other plants that are struggling. There's an amazing way that different beings support each other, and we've stepped away from that, where all of life is connected to this web of life and is working together for survival, and is all part of oneness. We stepped out of that, and we're actually incredibly species lonely, which is why people are getting so into nature right now. It's like, no, I don't want to be around humans. I want to be around other species, but other species, they communicate with each other. We don't.
Yeah, yeah. And even in the modern world, we think we're so connected, but we're actually disconnected in that
Mhm.
connection. And
Yeah.
people are struggling with that. They are struggling.
Hmm.
So, and you haven't done this easy. I looked at your history. You've had, so many different you could class as traumatic events and experiences that have that's brought you to this wealth of wisdom, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not always been fun.
No, most of what I read, I thought, "No, there's no fun in that." That's hard work, but we forget that's part of it too, is having to deal with those things that really push us to,
Right,
so, and I work on the principle too, is that we're at a time where we're choosing our soul path, and I love when you said, "Don't sit in the darkness." Because that's what you're choosing, is whether to move towards the light, which is where you have self-respect and love and appreciation and those kind of, um, I wouldn't say elements, but those kind of emotions that you allow yourself to work with, compassion, those kind of
yes,
things. Or you actually sit in the darkness and you become consumed with, all the different types of things that are not of you. They're
right,
depleting you.
right,
So, yeah, so that's how I look at where we're at, and I think we can very much see that that darkness on our nature, because we're allowing us to be the source of depletion of what
right.
we need to survive, which when you really think about it, you go, "Who thought that was a good idea?" Like, it's like, yeah. Like, "Yeah, that's a great plan."
Yeah. Well, I know that, on your show, a lot of people have experienced trauma, a lot of your viewers. And so, one of the challenges that all of us who have experienced trauma are being faced with right now, and it's really hard. It's a really hard one. I live in America, and I think people, because different cultures, people have different beliefs. Finding is that, especially women, but I'm definitely dealing with a lot of men with the same issues, don't know how to love themselves.
Mm.
And if you don't love yourself, it's very hard to create the life that you want to live. Really hard to create, because part of being able to create a good life is loving yourself and having enough self worth to step away from what the collective is telling you to do and put on that new costume, that new robe with the colors that you want to be wearing and the work that you want to be doing and what you want to be doing in the world. You have to love yourself. You have to have self-worth. And that was beaten out of us. We were taught
Mm.
not to, and just don't shine your light and keep in step with um, everybody else, and you'll make it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and people aren't making it. And
No, no, and we were sold that materialism, having the right, house and the car and that was gonna feed that part of you, and then it just became about, all these things that we're doing to try and impress people that don't really care about us anyway. So
right,
we so the none of this makes any logical sense, but it's really hard when people have been through traumatic experiences, especially those that have had childhood trauma, because
right.
the foundation's fractured. And to come to that point of even understanding what self love is, and I
Mm,
think I don't think there's anybody that hasn't struggled with that. And as soon as you feel judged or nervous or anxious, our default is to attack ourselves.
right,
Yeah, and then most of the time we're walking around with you know, an underbelly of shame, feeling that there's something wrong with us,
right,
whereas, we're not really meant to fit into the system that we've created.
right, right.
Yeah.
What I like to teach is that we all came in with an energetic signature, a unique energetic signature, and that every single life being is depending on us to express that energetic signature, to actually express why were we born, what was so interesting about planet Earth. Here we are with this little spirit, out in the universe, and we're looking down at planet Earth and we're going, I'm going to take a body in this lifetime, and this is what I want to do. And then we get here, and it's stop crying, stop laughing, stop smiling. You're not doing it right. But we came in here with this passion of what we wanted to do. And that's been part of my soul retrieval work, is teaching people what that passion is. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because what's happening now, and I teach people all over the world, what's happening now is that people are realizing they want to live out their passion. They want to live out their creativity. They're tired of being imprisoned in this role, in this belief of what life is about. Everybody knows there's more. There's more. We didn't just come here to be tortured, and we didn't just come here to torture the earth and the living beings here with how we treat everything. We came here to shine, to live how to be in gratitude, and learn about the passion of being in a physical body, which, of course, for all of us who suffered trauma, that's a tough one. But spirits don't hear, they don't taste, they don't smell, they don't touch, and So it's a real gift when we in spirit here in a body.
Yeah, and I always say to people that have been traumatized that sometimes, and I know this is a bit controversial, but sometimes when you know what the issue is, like if you've been abused or narcissistic relationship, or you've got body issues and you're fearing death or whatever it is that at least you know your starting point. Right. So then you can build the foundation from that starting point. You can see how that affected you. Because the biggest part of self-love that I see, and I confess to this being a hurdle that I'm constantly confronted with, is not to absorb and adopt how somebody else has treated you as a definition of your worth.
Right,
And it's really hard because we have become more disconnected from our natural selves, which means we are not treating others as well as what we know we should.
right,
So yeah, so it's kind of this. That's why I always say, reconnect, recover, and rejuvenate that excitement about life and that zest for all that you just said then. It's like, I've chosen to be here, so let myself experience everything that is around me.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then uh, being part of a community that really cares about each other. We in America we have nuclear families, and it's about the family. And I was reading something about famine in one of our papers, and they shared a story, a really inspiring story. Nobody wants to hear about famine, but an inspiring story about um, what's happening in Sudan with the famine. The grandmothers are coming out and showing their daughters and granddaughters how to um, how to find roots and berries, and then the men are going out and finding other resources. But when everybody finds their roots and berries and all those other resources, they come back and share it with
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah.
And that's not something that we see a lot of. And here in America, there's been a lot of climatic events over the years where we've had these huge hurricanes, tornadoes, cities just completely wiped out. It happens all over the world. I just happen to be here, so I know some of what goes on. And, the government comes on TV and says, don't worry, we won't, we're going to support you, we're going to take care of you. And then nobody ever shows up. And so back in those days of watching those hurricanes and those tornadoes, it was the community that came together to help rebuild because the government didn't help.
Mm.
And so that's part of the evolution that we're moving into now too, is as we start shedding our ego a little bit more and create more of an openness to embrace the concept of community. It's being in community where we can really help each other get through the coming times. And that's a big one that people are having a hard time letting go of because, again, they're afraid of being in community, being controlled again, or am I going to have enough if I'm sharing? So we're really waking up to a new consciousness about oneness, about community, about love, about gratefulness, and how to take care of ourselves and how to take care of this beautiful planet. People are waking up and starting to step into new roles and finding really different ways to be in service, whether it's making sandwiches for kids or donating or volunteering in some particular way. So there's a real wake up that's starting to happen around the world around it's not just about me. Um, how do I come together with others and be in service and where we join our strengths together so that we can help each other?
Yeah, yeah, it's extremely important. Extremely important. So so when you're doing your shamanic practices, how does it feel for you? What sort of connections are you feeling?
Well, again, in the world of shamanism, um, it's believed that we're in what's called the ordinary realm of existence. And in the world of shamanism, you can go into an altered state of consciousness I use a drum. In some cultures, they use plant medicine. Uh, Most cultures use some form of music, a drum or rattles or bells or click sticks, didgeridoo. And so in that state, when you're listening, your brain waves change and you go to a deeper place. So, first, we're in our ego mind, and then as we listen to the drum, our brain starts to slow down and our soul, which is our life essence, has the opportunity to connect with beings in what we call the unseen realms, non-ordinary reality, the other world. And they're so filled with love. They're intermediaries of the creative forces of the universe, and so they volunteer themselves to us. And so you feel like you're being held in love, even in your grief, even in your
Mm,
loss, even in your trauma. I used to do soul retrievals for kids who were being abused at school, but they couldn't do anything to stop it, and the parents couldn't do anything to stop it. And the kids, what they would tell me afterwards was, even though they were still their teacher was yelling at them or they were being bullied, they knew they had their animal spirit holding them the whole entire time. So it gives us a place of comfort and it reminds us that we're not alone. And for me, I get so much information of how to help others. So all my books, they're not channeled, but it's all information I learned from the spirits, my teaching, my healing. In doing healing work, a shaman is not like a therapist where you talk to the client, you make a diagnosis. It's the spirits that do everything. So, me as the practitioner, I'm just a hollow bone. I'm a empty reed. So, I drum, I sing, I dance to get my ego out of the way so I can open up and let spirit come through me. And when you let spirit come through you, you feel held in love. You know you're safe because your own spirit is waking up to the fact that you're fine. It's a good place to be. We're just learning some really tough lessons so that as we keep walking forward in life, we keep shedding what's not working. We become more conscious and responsible beings to ourselves, to our community, to our families, and the planet.
yeah, I like that. It's a good way to sum it up. And I noticed in your book that you use the animal spirits to convey messages.
Yeah, we decided. I wrote the book with Lynn Roberts, and we wrote another book where we did the same thing. We used animals to teach certain lessons. And so it's not like oracle cards, where you go to, this is what this animal means. It's more of a metaphor. So, just for an example, the very first chapter I wrote was on coyote. And I was trying to teach people how, when they're really in darkness and suffering loss and suffering physical issues, mysterious physical issues, which are
Mm,
huge in the world right now,
true.
every all these people start coming out of the woodwork saying, "Oh, I can help you. Oh, I can help you. It'll just cost this. I just need this. I can help you. I can help you." And all of a sudden, you realize that you've been tricked. Um,
Mm.
and so I don't want to give coyotes a bad rap. I actually do like coyotes, and they're part of our world family, but they have certain qualities where they trick their prey. And so I use coyote to talk about that. That what we need to do as we start stepping into darkness is the greatest light that we have in the darkness is our own intuition. And so when somebody says, "Oh, I can help you, sure, I can help you," instead of desperately giving all your money away or whatever that you're doing, your intuition throws up a red flag and says, "Run, run."
Yes.
And
Listen, listen. We do, I I see how we actually feel our intuition and then we counteract it because, we've got these beliefs and patterns, you know,
mhm,
"Oh, I don't wanna be rude," "I wanna be nice," give the benefit of the doubt. And then after it all turns to crap, you go, "Oh, I should have listened to myself right at the beginning." And everyone does it. So yeah, the importance of intuition is absolutely brilliant, and it's like a muscle. You need to use it and trust it. You need to work with it. You need to have a relationship with your own intuition
right,
before you can really trust it. If you
right.
don't, yeah. So which is part of, to me, that's part of healing.
Yeah, and so, the wonderful thing that, Lynn and I did with the book, and I have to do this is my nature, is to give ceremonies and to give practices, as you're going through those periods of loss, whatever you're losing. Here's a ceremony for you to do. Here's a practice for you to do. So, what I was trying to do is, I got hit by lightning when I was about 7 years old, and that means I was called to be a shaman. That's what it means in the world. And so, shamans are people who tend to have a wound that never heals so that you never lose compassion.
Mm,
So I've been through so many initiations where I've suffered a tremendous amount of loss. And I've been in one for 9 years where I've suffered a tremendous amount of loss. But as you start working with nature, um, you can really see what's being asked of you, the new consciousness that you're being asked to step into. And nature provides us messages through omens as we take our walks. You're thinking about a decision you want to make, and it's cloudy outside, and you get clear on the decision, and the sun's all of a sudden starts shining through right on you, and you go, "Yes, I made the right decision." Or in shamanism, it's believed that when some rain drops on you, when it drizzles on you, you're being blessed. And so, learning how to open up to the signs and open up to the wisdom of nature, it makes us feel like we're not alone and we're in a magical place. And a very poignant story that I tell in the book. It still is probably the most powerful experience of my life. Is that when I got struck down, which caused a physical issue for me, and I have a tree right outside my house that I did rituals at every
So
single.
when you say struck down, what do you mean?
I developed a rare brain disorder, like
Okay.
like in a second,
Right. Yeah.
after I put down the phone.
Right.
And so my tree that I did rituals at every single morning, it went down the same exact way my head went down, which that was crazy. So fast forward a few years later, I buy a little piece, a crystal. And the woman who sent me the crystal sent me a tiny little ruby. And she said, put it in a very special place in nature as gratitude for this gift that you have just received. So, of course, I put the little ruby in a little opening in the ground where the tree is lying. It's a very big tree, really big tree. Brought out all these tree experts, no explanation for it going down. It's still growing, it's still alive, it's just growing sideways. Anyway, I went out the next day after I put the ruby there to see if it would still be there. We have ravens here. They love to take shiny things, so I was kinda interested. And what appeared, and I have a photo of this, is a lichen heart, and it was big. It was about this big. Nature is really speaking to us. But we're so dense. We're not allowing ourselves to open to the magic of life. And walking through darkness, as scary as it sounds, opens us to the magic of life. And as scary as it sounds, we can also all of a sudden find ourselves in gratitude for the loss that we suffered because of the change that it created in us.
Yeah. I like that. I think it's scarier to be stuck in darkness than actually walk through it. It's hard either way, but
Mhm.
but to be stuck, which a lot of people are, I think that's I have a lot of compassion and a lot of sadness for that.
Yeah, so in walking through darkness, I give my roadmap of how I've gotten through all these initiations in life, practices, changes I've made, ceremonies that people can try. But I'm one of those people who I truly believe that the smallest steps that we take get us farther.
Yeah,
I find
definitely.
that people get paralyzed because all of a sudden they go, "Oh, let's see, I'm stuck. Oh, I'll try this." But there's no way to get from point A to point B. Where if you go tomorrow, I think I might sign up for a class, a dance class. That's something manageable. Then I'm going to move to another country. I'm going to get a whole new job. So I'm really into very small steps. And that's how I walk in nature. People don't like to walk with me, they don't like to with me. I am so slow. I take the smallest steps. But what I found, I was a firefighter, and I would be the one who got to the top of the mountain first because everybody got so tired running,
Yeah.
and I would just walk like a turtle, and I would get there first. So I've been like that my whole life. I believe small steps. Don't get too overwhelmed. Think about what's something really simple, the simplest change that I can make tomorrow that is going to help me move forward.
I think that's brilliant advice what you've just gave us. So I think it's time for Flip the Book. So would you like book 1, 2, or 3?
2.
2. Okay, so that is actually breaking free, and we only use the end of the book, and it gives us information about our soul, something that's important to us. So could you give me a number between 189 and 215?
I would say 205.
And you have 5 paragraphs to pick from. Which one would you like?
5.
5. Okay, this comes under the heading of loyalty. So loyalty would be very important to you. Loyalty is to live the authenticity of your soul, consciously participating in your relationship with truth. Loyalty is dependability. It is not blind conformity or dogmaticism. For you should only be loyal to what resonates with your soul or to what you acknowledge is of value. Obligation is not loyalty, as it deprives you of the freedom of choice and leaves you feeling controlled. Loyalty is pure of intent and a choice made with free will to care, nurture, and to be trustworthy. I
Mm.
like that for you.
Yeah, I would actually say that's the summary of our book.
All right, very good. So people journal from this part of the podcast. So what journal question do you think could come off that paragraph?
So I would say journaling about self love. I like to use automatic writing sometime to journal, where I put on just nice spiritual music that has no words. And I put what is blocking me from stepping into self love.
Oh, that's a
And
good
listen to
question.
the music, close my eyes, just let my hand go, doesn't matter how it's going. I open my eyes and I cannot believe what my unconscious revealed to me. I cannot even fathom. It was like I wouldn't have thought of that in a million years. Whether you just want to journal from your heart, let your heart speak, or whether you want to put on some music and let your unconscious speak to you, that's what I would suggest.
Suggest, yeah. And how important is loyalty to you? And what do you feel loyal to?
You know, loyalty is really important to me. Part of my heart initiations have been I sometimes become loyal to the wrong people, the wrong organizations, and I've got really, really hurt.
Yeah,
So right now, I'm trying to be loyal to myself and following my self truth.
I love that. I want to thank you for being on the show. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks, Lorraine. I really enjoyed it too. And I really thank you for the brilliant work that you're doing. And I just want to bless everybody out there and say, we can do this.
I love that. All the encouragement that we can get, we'll take.